No emailing anymore. Heads up, we are done with that.
Marketing can be fun.
I woke up with so much inspiration and motivation.
That is the only way to validate something. People buying it, not a wait list.
You broke so many hearts now.
Yeah, do you want to make it big or do you want to have a good life?
I want both.
Good morning, Sandra.
Good morning, Dan. How are you?
I'm fantastic, actually. I went for a run.
You went for a run?
I went for a run, and it's just about marketing today. I'm ready to do marketing. I'm ready to do strategies. I'm ready to send that email, send that cold DM.
No emailing anymore. Just a heads up, we are done with that.
Oh, I'm late.
It's over.
I finally got on board and it's over.
No, it's over. We found better ways than so. And you were maybe an inspiration for that because you kept saying no cold emails, and then I had to find other ways.
Just because I'm lazy and I don't like doing that. It's not really. Don't listen to me. It's a pretty good strategy.
Yeah. But I think today we prepared something interesting for people, and I'm ready to because I woke up with so much inspiration and motivation and everything. So I think we are ready to share all of that.
Let's do it. Yeah, so marketing, we're going to go through a structure today. So look at us being all professional. We're going to go from how to get the initial idea and validate it, and then kind of understand the audience, the target group, how to optimize for that target group, how to change your copy and so on, and then how to choose marketing channels based on that. And then finally wrapping it up and also showing how we did it and what success we have, because that's a lot easier to understand when we have real life examples. So we're probably going to talk about Clue and Shipixen and how launching that went, LB as well, and how launching those went, and then what strategy we have, and also how it changed over time, because that's I think one of the takeaways will be that this is in constant flux. You always need to experiment, and I think you said this, Sandra, that marketing is a thing specific to the product. It's never a one solution fits all. You always have to adapt it to the product and build it, right? Am I quoting you correctly?
You are very good. Very good job, Dan. But it's true. I think when we talk about marketing strategies, you have different channels and ways of doing that. But for each product, it always depends, either from messaging, landing page, what you're trying to achieve. So you kind of have to take all of that in consideration and then move forward. But it's fun.
Marketing can be fun. And I think even if you're a hardcore designer or a hardcore developer, you're really good at your craft, the fact that you convince a person to buy your thing can bring a lot of satisfaction, a lot of joy. And it's hard, and because it's hard, it's very rewarding when it works. And a lot of things won't work, and that's also what makes it even harder, because you still have to keep going and experimenting. Right? That's my experience, at least. I don't know if you have the same.
Yeah, I think indie makers have a great ability of figuring out things when it comes to code and the problems and the solution. And if they would approach the same way to marketing, I think they would find it fun. And I think many makers, like even you, Dan, there is this wall between you having the idea and then thinking about it and then building stuff. And then there is this certain wall. But once you go over that wall, it's much easier to do marketing. Because there is this process of figuring out things, and then when you see something is working, then you can just double that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, I think, the other takeaway that they're gonna have here. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We're gonna talk. So later in the show, we're gonna show you examples of what worked, tweets, landing pages, copy, even some lemon squeezies, some emails, some dashboards, just to show how a validation could work. But let's start from the beginning, the
Yeah.
initial idea, the initial spark, right? How does that start for you?
Well, I had something happening. So, I mean, we all know about Clue and Shipixen, and we're going to talk about it. But at least in the past 2 weeks, something happened with me and LB in the sense where I need to figure out this validation and what do we consider validation? Is this valid enough for me to actually go into and build something around it? Interesting thing about LB, it was a problem that was brought to me in the sense that I've noticed something happening. And then, so just back a little bit backstory about LB. Let's back up, Sandra. I've noticed in Posthog that I'm getting a lot of referrals from certain Medium article. And I wanted to test and see if this would work with different type of writers as well. So, and it did, but it worked for me. Is it a problem big enough for other people? That's the question. And would you put your time and effort into it? So I had to think about how we're going to validate that. We build a website on the show. But then there is also, you like the idea, I like the idea. Does anyone else like the idea? And it was
and not our friends.
And not
just
friends.
Very important.
Yeah. We know about mothers. They definitely don't like the ideas, but so it was a simple tweet, me saying goodbye emails. I've noticed this in Posthog. I think it might work for other people. And this is how we can do it. And it got 200 bookmarks and sales. Do we consider that? Do we consider that a good validation to move forward with the project?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's a good way to do it because you haven't risked that much by doing the website itself, that we literally did that, I think 2 or 3 episodes ago, and it took 1 hour maybe, if that. And you haven't spent time on building the product yet. You've spent time on thinking about what this is and the messaging. So if people say, well, this is never going to work, or, it's just negative validation, then, well, we haven't wasted much on it. We just move on, no problem. But you didn't get that. You got essentially any positive feedback. And I think we even asked for pricing, and we asked some people, how much would you pay for that? And a lot of people would say, first of all, they say they would pay for that, which is already a good sign. And then also the amounts were pretty good. So it wasn't, I would pay $5 for that, because that's already a sign that, okay, maybe it's not that much value. So definitely an effective way to do it. But that's also, I think one of the themes here is, before you do that, it's a lot easier to validate if you have either some sort of audience or know how to reach people. So you need some sort of, you posted this, you have a lot of followers, it was easy for you to get feedback on it. And I think it's a lot more tricky if you don't, but there's still ways to do it. There's still, maybe on X, you do a video, you do a funny video perhaps, or something that you get a little bit out of your comfort zone and you become creative and you speak about your idea like that. And I think some of the examples that we've seen with Max Blade and Juanjo, which didn't have a following. No one knew who they were. And through these videos, they managed to validate their ideas. Or maybe you do something similar on Reddit, right? If you know how that works.
But one thing to add about Max, when he started, he didn't have a bunch of followers, but he knew which people he's targeting. So he knew to position himself in the right community, at least.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So, yeah, but I can tell you also a bit about how I validated Shipixen and how that came to be. And you don't know the story at all.
I don't know.
We talked about the show. Yeah. So I think around summer, I wrote this tweet. I cannot find anything on Twitter anymore, but I wrote this tweet And I said, well, I have all these projects. So it all came from me trying different ideas, launching different projects, and then accumulating these sort of templates. So the next time I do a project, it's faster. And after I do that, I go back, I update the template, and it gets faster and gets faster. And at some point, I tweeted saying, well, I actually have this folder on my computer that I think has a lot of value. Like, should I make it a product? And I keep improving this. And I think that got some positive feedback, but I didn't act on it. And that was a mistake because I could have been a little bit ahead of a wave. Because what happened was that, I can't remember, but towards the end of summer, maybe early autumn, Mark Liu did this. And it's not to say that he looked at my thing and got the idea or anything. I don't think he even knew who I was at that time. But anyway, he got a similar idea. And I think a lot of people got a similar idea, but no one thought how to position this and how to price it. So he launched this. And then I saw, okay, this is doing pretty well. And I have the same thing. But even so, when I start a project, there are a lot of repetitive steps. Like even if I had Mark Liu's template, there would be a lot of repetitive steps to that. So that's what I wanted to optimize for myself. When I start, I don't have to go through all this configuration, to resize images, to change all these names, to change all these titles, all the descriptions. And, you know, it seems like a little bit of work, but it's 3 days of work. Usually, you know, you tend to underestimate it. And then the energy that you start with to build a product fades away because you've spent 3 days on putting titles and descriptions, but you need a landing page, and then you need some sort of style, and you just put all the excitement that you have in that, and then you end up not having any energy for the product, and then you never ship it, right? So,
but there is a slight difference here because usually people jump into the product itself of building, but now we are talking like one step before with Shipixen.
yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. So before that, I kind of had a rough idea, but this wasn't a product, right? It was just some files that I had. I guess you can technically sell files, but that's, to me, it's a little bit far-fetched to call that a product. So what I did, I'll just share my screen. I quickly made an app, just local app, that literally had, let me show you. It was literally having inline to-dos. I don't know if you can see here, like to do configure something. And I tweeted about it and I said, well, I think I'm onto something. This wasn't even MVP. I didn't even have a name for it. You see, there's no name. And I thought, let's put it out there and see what people think, because, you know, there's all sorts of hype around the topic. And I showed it. I just showed with a few arrows how this works. And this got freaking 170,000 views and a lot of hype around it. And at that moment, I knew, okay, I need to make a website and I need to have a pre-order, because one thing is people hyping it and telling you this is a good idea. Another thing is people actually buying this thing. And that is the only way to validate something. People buying it, not a wait list.
Not a
not
wait
someone
list?
putting.
Oh my God, then you broke so many hearts now.
No. Wait lists, I think it makes sense to have a wait list if you already have some sort of product behind you, if you're a VC-backed startup, and if you have, you know, a marketing team behind it that could do this, maybe that makes sense. You know, I don't want to experiment, see if what works for you. I don't want to discount it, but I think for indie makers, wait lists are just the way for you to postpone launching the product.
Oh yeah, I agree with you.
So I'm here on the Wayback Machine. This is what I did. I bought a domain real quick. I made a logo with Mid-Journey, I think, which is kind of sketch, but I kept it. I I tried to improve it over time because it's I asked for a 3D logo, but the perspective is a little bit skewed. So anyway, I put in the copy. This is how I started. I put in the copy without. I'm still at the stage where I don't have the product. I came out with a price, which was completely wrong, but we can talk about that. You're probably gonna get it wrong anyway. And I tried to the best of my abilities to explain what I'm building, what's going to come out. And I did a pre-order discount, which is you need to have a little bit of a nudge because there's no product here. Like you're selling something that isn't even, you don't even have a demo yet for it, right? Or I had some screenshots. Yeah, and I wrote down the copy. I put on some of the features that I knew I'm gonna include. I can't remember if I got all of them in the first release, but it doesn't matter. You can get them later as well. And I put this up. 41 orders came in over. So this tweet was 18th of October, and then I built the website and the copy by around the 20th. So that was 18 on 19, and the 20th I've launched it, and then 21st. I marketed it, and then 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. So this is actually roughly 48 hours. It made $1,700, which is pretty much, my idea was if I sell 10 of these, it's validated. I'm actually building the MVP for this, right? And I got 4 times that. So definitely validated. And I think I increased the price. That was the slowdown that you see here. Yeah, because you see the average is 42, and then in here it was 36. So when I saw like orders kept coming in, I increased the price. And I had, the first 20 were limited. You can even see in the snapshot. So after, I don't think, I wasn't even fast enough. Like I think I went to sleep when I had 10, and then next morning it was like 28 or something. So I wasn't even, this wasn't kind of true. I kept it going. Then I increased the price, and then it slowed down. So that also goes to show that this, even though the product itself was undervalued, it was a good pre-order spot for this, right? So that was not, and the other thing that I did when I saw this tweet worked very well, I doubled down on it. So I quoted it. Yeah, you can see here. I just quoted that tweet. Was this the next day, I suppose?
Oh,
no, on the 20th,
even more.
Right?
Yeah.
And it got even more. So that is the thing. If you found what works, double down on it. Yeah. And the difference here was that I switched from the image screenshots to a video of the same thing. I cleaned it up a bit. I removed the to-dos basically. Just kept it simple. And I did like a 1-minute video showing how this works and showing the result of it. And this did even better. And it was essentially the launch tweet. So no product hunt, no other things like that. That came a lot later, and we can talk about that. But this was it, essentially.
But it also spoke to the community, the product itself.
Yeah, so the backstory is I've been already doing, at that point, products for developers. So pretty much all of my products are in the dev tool developer area. And I've been doing products for 1.5 years or so in the area. So it was a good match for the people that I've the people that were in my engaged with that were following me, essentially, right? So that's something to keep in mind, because if you've been talking about marketing and all of a sudden you launch this, that's not going to work the same way. And it's back to the initial thing. It's a lot easier to validate if you already have the audience, and if you don't, you have to get a lot more creative. But even so, I didn't have 190,000 followers, right? I think at the time, I don't think I had 10,000, probably 6, 7, something like that. And so it wasn't a huge audience, to be honest. And it went so far outside of that audience because the content was good, because the idea was good. And that's what you should focus on when you validate. Focus on what your target is and how do you communicate with them? And that's the second point, Sandra. How do you understand the target audience? How do you get there?
I think in both of our cases, and even let's bring Max into it because he really fits this. But it's in your case, in his case, and then I'll talk about me. But you both knew the target audience. You've both kind of like engaged with that before. And interesting for you, you had a problem like it was your own problem. So you knew how to communicate that problem as well. So when you were validating Shipixen, you already knew who's going to use the product. So you didn't go outside of your comfort zone pretty much.
Yes.
So for me, when I started Clue, I had like no idea where this product will fit. I knew the problem is quite big. And for Clue, it was interesting process of validation because we immediately we built kind of MVP, we had something. And then we went immediately to companies and tried to sell that product. And it worked. We sold like Clue to, I think, 10 companies in January. That's how we knew, okay, like we need to raise money on this. There is something happening here. Let's figure it out. But so that was a validation process for Clue. Building the idea, we had idea, then building MVP, it took like 2 weeks, and then let's sell it or let's try to sell it. We managed to do that. And then so that's cool and nice. But then I was put in the situation where I need to figure out, okay, who am I actually targeting? Who are these people in these companies and how to scale this? So I knew that there were tech companies. I knew these were product managers, very techy people that are using. And for Clue, it was quite obvious because of the apps or integrations we had. So, when you take a look at Slack and Notion and Gmails and Drives and all of these things, these are kind of like tech companies, startup people, product managers. Later on, we kind of like fixed it with other integrations to scale outside of that circle. But I knew that it's techie people and I need to find a space where I can build this story around Clue. But in the same time, I needed to find people that were willing enough to try this product because Clue is quite complicated in the sense of you need to integrate your apps. There are different things and data information on these apps. People that are trying these apps need to be willing enough to try. So this community, so I went into indie maker community quite accidentally, I would say, because these people were open enough to test the product and also give the feedback for me. So in that sense, I had to position myself, but also Clue into circles that were fast enough to try the product and then give me the feedback. So validation for Clue was, can we sell this? Very similar to you, but we were thinking at that point in a very startup way. So can we find a right company? Who are the teams in these companies? Do we have any contacts there? How do we reach out to these people? Yeah.
So did you know that this is the case at that point already? Did you know this is maybe not the right target group, or you were just experimenting?
I think at that point it was the only way for us to validate the product.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, let's say, the fastest way to validate the product because our backgrounds were in companies and startups. I don't know what happened, but there is a firework behind me, so it's all good.
Yeah. It's just, I think even Riverside got super excited about Clue and the way you validated it. Yes.
But what I'm trying to say is that at that point, it was the only way for us to validate something fast enough to move forward. In your case, it was going online. I have this group of people that I've already engaged with, and I know the messaging. For me, because that was my background, I was faster or able to like get these companies or teams that I already knew to test and validate the product for me.
Yeah. So how did you then discover the right target audience after this initial stage?
I think you dig kind of deeper. So if you have different types of of people using the platform, you can definitely dig deeper into, but this is one step already where you are digging deeper into analytics and seeing who are the active or daily active users, who is returning to the platform. Our cases would be the ones particularly in who are the ones that paid for this product. What are they are doing on daily basis? How often they are coming back to the product? So you can build an image of a perfect target group and go and hunt them. But also you need to get back to who are the people that already paid the product, or who are the ones that were in the process of validating. So for me, it was we sold it to companies, but for which teams we sold this? Were these product teams, marketing teams? In our case, it was product and marketing teams. So we knew that there are managers, marketing people. In manager case, it was because he was the middle person of asking, or someone who is getting asked a lot of questions daily. He was someone who is using multiple different platforms because he knew or he needed to navigate multiple different informations between different teams. Marketing people because they are using different apps. There is a lot of content going back and forward. And then particularly the important part was communication between these different teams.
Yeah, so you build a persona essentially early on, and then you figure out where does that persona hang out essentially.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Then you move to channels. Then you move to channels and where they are. But essentially it was okay, we have this idea, let's try to validate. And then once you validate, you dig deeper into building these personas one by one and then figuring out where they are.
Yeah. So for me, it was this, but it was a little bit difficult to focus because when you dig deep into this, I found out who's buying the product. Well, some were from the education / university / starting to learn the target group industry, I want to say, if that's an industry. Some were developers, some were indie makers, some were subgroups of that. So specifically backend developers, perhaps, that don't have design skills, which is essentially what I'm aiming at right now for those that have a hard time designing and getting a landing page up and getting a blog up, for those that have a hard time setting up a website for SEO and of those. So I tried to cater for too many target groups initially instead of just picking one, instead of just making one persona, one group. And that meant that as I was going forward, the landing page was a huge struggle because how do you address all of these target groups at once?
You don't.
And you don't, and it didn't work for any of them as a result. Instead of just, okay, make it work for one. And for a long time, I specifically didn't target indie makers. And that was essentially one of the biggest mistakes, and why I say if you found out a strategy that works, double down on it. And I did that for 2 weeks, and then I thought, this is wrong. I don't want indie makers to be I want agencies to use this. And okay, and what channels do you have then to reach those agencies? What examples do you have? You didn't validate it with agencies, validated with developers and indie makers. So double down on that target. That was a big mistake for me. And then I got
That's a great
back.
point, Dan. That's a great point because if you try to go outside of the bubble you already have, you really need to be confident enough that you have right contacts that you can push that and scale that as well. Because if you're just starting out or are building a product for the niche you have no idea about, it's going to be super hard to get that initial validation, feedback, and figure out who are these people.
Yeah. So I think I got ahead with that. I tried to jump ahead, and the natural way of this happening is your initial target group. If you nurture that, they will eventually show you other paths, other channels that you could try, but you need to wait for them to take the product, maybe use it at their work, So a lot of products start as B2C, then people take it at their work, they like it, then you get some B2B leads, and then you understand what companies could work in B2B, and then you take it from there. But if you try to jump and say, okay, I'm going to do B2B now, there's no validation at all that it will work, and I don't really have any customers there, but I'm going to switch my marketing to that because that's where I want to be. I'm going to have a pretty hard time getting into that. And that doesn't mean don't experiment, but view it as an experiment and have this one target group as your main thing, and do the experiments to, of course, you always have to do these because you might not get it right. And there's a pretty big chance you didn't get it right, but don't touch it if it works. Pretty much that was my learning. And then do the experiments and find the better channel, find the better audience while this is still working well. It's a lot more demotivating to do it if it's working well. You kind of tear it down, you change the audience, and then it's not working as well as it did before. So that's also a mistake that I made. And I think around November, December, it went very well. It was doing $8,000 a month, maybe even $9,000, I can't remember. And then I changed it and I tried to appeal, and then down, I think last month or in June, it went down to like 1,200. Granted, I also didn't do as much marketing as before because I was jangling a few things. And then I thought, well, this is bad. Like, I'm really going to a bad direction. And I reached out to the initial audience that I had, right? My main channel. And I asked, why is this not working? I said, this is pretty crazy that you can do that. It's pretty crazy that this website is free, x.com, sign up.
Oh. I was following it and you lost me.
And I asked, hey, it's not working. What should I do? And people said, well, put a video, talk about the product, show the product. They said, this looks like a lifetime deal. Why don't you have a lifetime deal? They said, you have a lot of things built in, all these components, all these templates or landing. I go on the homepage and I don't see any of those. Like, I have no idea that I'm gonna get those. I need to go deep, so I'm already out of the website by the time I realized this. So I changed those, and then this month I'm back to 3,000. So I'm basically have 200%.
The firework now?
And there's no firework. No, it's not as impressive as Clue, right? So that's the lesson, and that was a mistake as well, that I didn't really understand the audience. This is exactly the second point. And the only way, I mean, we're talking about this, and I really hope people listen, because if I was in the same position, I would think, yeah, I know better. I know my product. Don't listen to these people. But listen, if you find something, double down on that, and don't get greedy. Don't think you know better. And I think I was on a podcast with the Solos podcast with Martin Donadieu. I like my French. That's nice. And we talked about the same thing, that we're so self-centered, and we're our ego is massive, and we think, yeah, this is how you should do it. And whatever this person tells me that their lesson is, I know better because here's the size of my ego and I'm this good. And if I learned one thing, is that the more you build, this ego that you have kind of gets smaller and smaller, and you realize you don't know anything. And you should listen to all these people that have improved their sales and try to put it in your context. It's not always easy to take that, transpose it, and put it into your product. That's true. And sometimes it doesn't make sense at all. I mean, if you're doing a product for dog owners, and I'm talking about Shipixen for developers, I don't know if there's as many lessons, but some of the things are true. Double down on what you see works is true regardless. Understand your audience, and then choose your marketing channels. this is the third topic we have. How did you do that with Clue? Like, what was your path to choose the channels?
I just want to add one thing before we move to that, but
Yeah.
you mentioned something, there is a huge difference between Shipixen and then building a different app. But one thing that we all, or like these type of the products have in common is like the person who is building this, where this person figure out the problem, how much influence you have around that. So, you know, we had Mari,
Yes, Marie.
yeah, talking about how she wanted to build an app for the dog and how she never like had a problem. She had love for that, but she had no idea like about the industry and how it works and etc. So like this type of I think the best way of building the product is like when you are in the situation where you have this problem, you understand the industry, and then you can like move forward because it's so much easier to get the feedback from that. Talking about the channels.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like this whole process of me figuring out where the people are and what type of people I needed at that time to move forward with the product. And I knew I need people that are open enough to test the product, that were already using these apps or were familiar with the apps. And this is where I went to like social media and then trying to figure out which channel there would be the best. I knew LinkedIn wasn't the option because I had MVP of a product. And if you want to sell or present something on LinkedIn, those people are super professional like yourself there. And they get a bunch of messages all the time of people asking them to try the product. So I knew that the Clue is not the right fit at that stage. And all other things required too much time and effort to do. And I wanted to move super fast. So this is how I went on X. And there, like if you take a look at the social platform you choose, there's so many things there and communities that each community has its own world. So you really need to like find the right community where you're going to position yourself. And again, it comes from the people you want to try and test the product. So for me, I kind of stumbled up this indie hacking community and then kind of positioned Clue there and figured out people I wanted to test the product. And I think that was an interesting process because even in this community, you will see, I think why people were open enough to test the product is because I was doing the same thing for them. So there was like this mutual understanding and relationships we were building at the beginning. X was one of the ways. At the beginning, it was the most important channel. This is how we went on Product Hunt and launched the product there. This is how we built the whole hype around Clue. So I wouldn't say X or the group of people that I was targeting at the beginning are relevant now, but they were definitely important people to build this identity for Clue.
Yeah, it was an important stepstone that you had to
Oh, for
go
sure.
through. Yeah.
For sure. Like they were the ones that gave us initial feedback, that worked on the product. And then in the same time, I started Product Hunt campaign, and that lasted for like 5 weeks. And then the whole army at one point came to the Product Hunt, and there was a huge support. And then from Product Hunt, it actually like started to become something from like media side and like bunch of mentions, and then but none of that would be possible if I didn't have this type of the community there. And then from there, I had ability to dig deeper into data, and I think that's super important because then I had different type of people that came from Product Hunt, different type of people that were paying, and then you had different type of people requesting different things. So there was like multiple different things happening in the same time. And then I had ability to dig deeper into data and to see like who are these people, where can I find them, what are the best channels. So yeah.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Yeah, so that just goes to show when you start, you need to be clever about the channel you're picking, because you might get a lot more for less effort. That's kind of what I'm getting from what you're saying, that you kind of picked something that you don't really view as a main target audience or main channel right now, but it was very approachable in the beginning, and it got to the actual channels that you needed later.
Oh yeah. And I think you need to be super strategic about it, because I had Google Sheets of people that I have interacted every single day, and I knew where I stopped so I can come back and continue the conversation. And I've done that multiple times, like this type of like strategic way of thinking, or like just having a proper to-do list is much easier to follow the process and the numbers, just to see what's working the best. Later on, like, okay, now I think we all reached these levels where you want to move away from X and figure out other channels that are working as well. So like right now, like there are different social media channels that work for Clue, but then I'm also like experimenting with ads. I'm experimenting also with SEO, and I can see different improvements. So even when you take a look at like SEO, which I think you have so much more to say than me, I'm just a baby, but even there are so many things you can focus and see what works, what doesn't work for the product itself. So one of the interesting things what I've saw with SEO, that SEO was the main channel for companies to find Clue. And that's like, and then you double on that. Okay, what are the exact articles these people find us through, and how can we improve that?
Yeah,
And
what's the
why
conversion of those articles?
exactly.
Also, right?
So like it's the story is different in these articles. So we are not talking about anymore about like building a new landing page, but we are just talking about the article that is, the story is totally different than the Clue main landing page. So
Yeah.
in the process of this, you figure out different ways, even in the target audience.
Yeah. That's super interesting. I think SEO is a lot more useful if you have this heavy data focused approach as you do, and that is also one of there are different ways to do this, but yours is very factual, data oriented. So you got the tracking, and you look at works. If this thing brings users, if it brings paying users, even because you look at the whole thing, sometimes that there's a big difference between the two, and then one channel that brings a lot of users might not actually be as good. It's just as simple as that. I'm not as good as it as you are at this, but for SEO, I'm looking. There are different tools to track user behaviors. But you're gonna use PostHog, and then for SEO, you're gonna use Ahrefs, and you're gonna use Google Search Console. But it's heavily data influenced. I mean, I look at the keywords, I look then at the article, I look at what actually converts as well, and what actually keeps the people longer on the page. So it's not just hacking SEO to get impressions and clicks. And it makes a lot more sense to do SEO when you have the data to back up what works, and instead of just shooting it in the dark. But that's SEO is all about that. It's all about analyzing your own things, analyzing the competitors, analyzing their backlinks as well. And then sometimes a backlink means more than it could mean a channel as well. So just looking at backlinks, we're looking today at a backlink for Medium, and we discovered there was a conversion from it, and there were a lot of competitors there as well. And then that person might have a website, a directory, a newsletter, and that might be a great channel that you've just discovered by looking at the data.
Yeah, I think that's super interesting to mention. You're 100% right. Like if you take a look at the conversion rate or just views, they are so different. And so I have this thing where I don't look at the views at all in my PostHog. I don't care about it. Like it's a different type of marketing if I would care about that. It would be more about the brand and visibility and, that's a
big brand
different
stuff.
story. That's totally different story. I think for us, it's more about which channels work the best for you. And if you take from that perspective, like there is a certain switch because we might focus more on X or the community, but also in this, you can figure out that, like in my case, GitHub is like in top 3 places, and it has been like that from the beginning. When it comes to conversion rate, the views are not that high, but the conversion is. So that's that type of the things you really need to pay attention. So yeah, building a community and then figuring out social media, which channel works the best, but then the supporting channels, the ones that you can experiment with and see if they're working or not. But one thing about SEO, I didn't start SEO I think it went 7 or 8 months when I actually started to care about when it comes to Clue. One of the reasons, because multiple times when it comes to these projects, you change, you switch the story, you do, I don't know, I guess the reaction really likes me to say, but you might build your SEO strategy and then figure out, okay, this product, this type of the story doesn't work for me, it's not for the right audience, and then you need to switch it and change it. And that's very hard at least when I was thinking about SEO, I didn't know, will Clue be the same as, in the first few months. So
yeah, SEO is it's quite the investment, and I wouldn't maybe not wait 7 months, but I wouldn't start with it in the first after you validated and launched. I would then maybe start to think about it if you know this thing works. So there's a good chance that you will spend this effort and then change your positioning, so then all of your keywords and so on won't be as relevant if you do it too early. So yeah, it's a balance. It's hard to say when to start it, but I wouldn't start in the first month, maybe even first 2 months. And then if I think I kind of got it now, I kind of got the copyright, because that's also where you get the keywords initially, because you have no idea. Then I would double down on SEO, and that also takes time because you need to do link building, and then you need to do a lot of consistent work on articles and improve your ranking. It's very hard to start this work, and then maybe after this is in my experience, after 6 months you kind of see some results, and then you move from shooting in the dark to actually checking Ahrefs, to actually checking competitors and Google Search Console, and to see the keywords there, and to see not only branded keywords, but maybe some long tail keywords that you rank for. You double down on those and so on.
I'm thinking that we need a boilerplate for marketing, because we are talking about and there's so many different channels. You can really get it's a positive thing to know there are different channels. And the issue is that with each of these different channels, there are multiple, as I said, communities and people that you can probably target in. But it can really get overwhelming. And I think what we are trying to say is that you need to choose 1, 2, or 3 channels. Even that is
that's already too much. Yeah, that's
already too much.
Yeah. 2 channels is probably what you can do as a solo maker. It's already a lot. So if you already have Reddit, let's say, and that works well, add SEO to it, and those are your 2 channels. And then just keep the instead of doing the third one, do experiments, but don't double down. And those experiments might make you think, okay, maybe this could actually work better than the Reddit channel. And then you leave that on the side, and then you switch to the new thing. And these experiments are sometimes really clear, as you did experiments with micro-influencers, right? And newsletters. Yeah.
And when you're doing the experiments, make sure that these are 5 days experiments, not more than that. Not in the sense that you have invested certain amount of time, you can move forward and then you will see the results. You know how to follow these results. So when it comes to experiments, don't look at them like a building a new channel. That's the most important thing. You need to be able to move.
You did the newsletter thing, and that wasn't even 5 days, or was it?
Yeah. I think I've scratched in a day, you can scratch like thousands and thousands and then shoot and see what's happening.
Oh, yeah. And it was pretty clear if it works or not.
Oh, yeah.
Like you
Yeah.
didn't,
Yeah.
there was no question. Yeah. So that is about it. I don't know if you want to cover something else.
The one thing
Rambling.
that is interesting that there is a huge difference and I haven't tried are free tools.
Yeah. I didn't talk about that. Yeah. It's a good point. So this year, especially, instead of launching new products, I changed to launching free tools for existing products. And I think for us, it's important to still have the space for creativity to launch something. But instead of creating something from scratch, which we all know is a lot of work, you can strengthen the product that's already making some sales. And the free tools are very interesting because you also strengthen your SEO with them. And then with each of the free tool, you can do a mini launch or just a proper launch anyway. And you could go through the channels that work for you again and again. So just as an example, I launched Page UI, which is sort of it's a free library if you want. It's a landing page component library, completely open source. And I launched it on Product Hunt, sort of as a sub product to Shipixen. And I got like $1,000 something in sales from that, which is a pretty good result.
Nice
Actually,
funnel,
because it is not even a direct, it's sort of a subset of Shipixen. So I would expect that people use that, and maybe in 6 months they think, okay, let me use the big boy now. Let me get all the benefits. So it was a surprising result, and the launch itself created a lot of buzz. It created a lot of views. I was looking for analytics. It was about 3 or 4 days even that this got 5 times the views, so around 1,000 unique views a day, which is an amazing amount of traffic to get by launching a free tool. And especially want to touch on the open source aspect of it, because being an open source free tool, I also got featured in a lot of newsletters. There's a lot of open source directories. There's a huge open source community, right? That's what runs the world. That's, most software these days have some sort of open source that's powering it. So there's a lot of people watching these, and those were completely unexpected to me. I got into something called TLDR. I don't know if you've seen that. It's like a huge newsletter. I got some sort of mention there. I got mentioned in the changelog. I don't know if it's a newsletter or some sort of watch thingy that they post weekly. Like, these are the new cool tools. And these are like huge publications. Like, changelog is one of the biggest tech podcasts out there. And there were people reaching out to me, like real life friends that have no idea that I'm doing this. And they were like, hey, I think I recognized you from changelog. Like, is this your project? And those are super strong backlinks. And then GitHub became a channel for me. I'm getting sales from GitHub, people finding the open source project there, then using it for a while.
It's a very good channel, just to mention that.
It's a good channel because people coming there, they usually have money. That's an unfair thing, but developers, there's not enough of them, and they most of them get paid very well. So if the product saves them a bunch of time, it's an easy decision. Like, look, when I look at the pricing of something, and let's say it's a lifetime deal of $200, I think, okay, how much do you get paid per hour? Is $100, $150? Maybe you could get that in the Nordics, or in the US you get 200 or even more. Okay, that's 1 hour of working. Can I do this in 1 hour? And the answer is no, absolutely not. Sometimes it would take you 3 weeks, right?
Yeah.
So it's an easy purchase. And I think also that's why GitHub works, because if people come across your thing and a lot of them search for a product to solve a problem that they're having, that they want to, it's very funny. You go on GitHub to find an open source version that solves your problem so you don't have to build it again. It's exactly that mindset. So it works very well for me.
So if we have to wrap up all of this, like what would be, because for me, I think the most important part for people to understand, or why we are having this conversation, is that validation, like from idea to validation, I think that's like the most important thing. And then how you validate the product and where you validate the product. I think we spoke a lot about the community that we are in, but indie community doesn't have to be your way of validating the product. You could be working in a company, you could be a product manager, an engineer, you could know this problem very well, and you can validate that idea where you are. So I wouldn't push this narrative that you have to be in indie community or that you have to build a product for indie makers. It's just you're surrounded by people that might have a similar problem as you. And it will be easy for you to test this product with them and validate that. And then when it comes to the channels, it's the same pretty much story. What is the best channel that you can use, that you can see the results fast?
That's a really good wrap up. Yeah, for sure. And I think another component that we didn't talk about at all is this part of being active in a community and being a member of a community, right? Because I think that's for both of us, the things that made these products work were that we were active members in the community in the first place. So that would also be sort of an outside takeaway of this, because it's a lot easier to validate.
Oh, for sure.
If you have direct access to a community, if you're embedded in the community that you build a product for, that makes it a lot easier, a lot more valuable.
Oh, yeah. And one thing to add on that is that, okay, you will validate the product, but you will also have the people to help you build the product. And example, in my case, I'm not doing Google Ads alone. I'm not doing SEO alone. I have Ili for that, and there's Philip as well. And then I'm working with Serhi when it comes to Google Ads.
Yeah, we have a whole team, huh?
We have we have a whole team around us that is working with us.
We have Nico for meta ads and so on. And these people, they go really deep on the topic. They understand it, and then they will be a lot better than you are when you start, because you're just gonna, when it comes to ads especially, you're just gonna spend a lot of money with very few results. That's my experience, at least.
Yeah. So that's also a very important aspect of the community. And I think when we see big makers, we think that they work alone, but there is a group of people behind them as well, either to validate, support, or help them to do the same. And I think we managed to, or we are trying to build that.
Yeah. All right. Well, that being said, I think we could definitely dive in some of the topics. I mean, if people listen to this and they feel like we should dive into the SEO or free tool aspect and so on, I'd be happy to show analytics and also your data-driven approach. I would love to see, I don't know why you don't do this, but a tutorial on PostHog and how to use it. You saw me use it. I'm like a child learning to ride a bicycle.
Before we started the show, Dan was showing something to me in PostHog, and it was very hard to look at it. Yeah, but I do that with members. I'm jumping on call with Joao next week to dig deeper into PostHog. I think it's much easier to do it on the call.
Talking about community, I know you do that. And it's not even the Morning Maker Show community. You do that with everyone, like just here's my Calendly.
Yeah. My Calendly is always open. I love to look at other people PostHog.
All right.